Hello everyone, and welcome to the pilot episode of my new series, Game Lore. This is a series where we take a look at video games and compare the plots and characters to their classical counterparts. With E3 2017 behind us and a lot of great games to look forward to, I wanted to start this series off with a look at Kratos, the vengeance-driven demigod made famous by the God of War Saga. Kratos finds his origins in Greek mythology. Much like his 10 years of service in the game series, Kratos was often seen serving the throne of Olympus in lore. He made appearances in a few ancient Greek stories, including poems written by Hesiod, Aeschylus, Plato, and finally in Bibliotheca, a compendium of Greek myths and historic legends. As far as modern history goes, Kratos' only representation comes from the God of War Saga. God of War was not restricted to video games, though. God of War had a running comic book series that was announced in 2009 and ran for 6 issues from 2010 to 2011, with the final installation being published by DC Comics. There was also a novelization of the critically acclaimed launch title to the video game series that offered deep insights to the story. Finally, God of War had a film adaptation announced in 2005, and just before the release of God of War 2, creator David Jaffe confirmed that a script was complete and would be sent out to a big-name director. However, in September of 2009, a statement was released that basically said everything was in the hands of the studio and they haven't heard back in 2 years. Seeing as it's now 2017 and we have yet to hear more or see the release of a God of War movie, it's safe to assume it's not happening. Now that we know the different sources that have represented Kratos over the course of history, let's take a deeper look into them, starting with the source Greek mythology. Kratos was the personification and god of strength and power in Greek mythology. There are 2 competing versions of his parentage, each of which changes his relation to the other gods. In one version, he's the son of the Titans Pallas and Styx. This would make Kratos a relative of the Olympian gods, but not one of their direct number. He was the brother of Nike, Bia, and Zalus. The 4 siblings were the enforcers of Zeus. In another lesser-known version, he's one of the many children of Zeus, born of a mortal woman. Regardless of Kratos' origin, the demigod doesn't show up in many of the Greek myths, but let's take a look at the few that he is in. Hesiod, Aeschylus, and the Bibliotheca write of the birth of Kratos and his siblings and have mention of warriors calling out his name before a great battle. However, Plato and Aeschylus write about Kratos' involvement in the capture and binding of Prometheus. The more popular and thorough of the 2 is Prometheus Bound, a tragedy written by Aeschylus. His part follows as such.
Well, why art thou delaying and vainly commiserating? Why loathest thou not the god that is most hateful to the gods, who has betrayed thy prerogative to mortals?
Relationship and intimacy are of great power.
I grant it, but how is it possible to disobey the sire's word? Dreadest thou not this the rather?
Ay, truly, thou art ever pitiless and full of boldness.
For to deplore this wretch is no cure for him. But concern not thou thyself vainly with matters that are of no advantage.
O much detested handicraft!
Wherefore loathest thou it? For with the ills now present, thy craft in good truth is not at all chargeable.
For all that, I would that some other had obtained this.
Everything has been achieved except for the gods to rule, for no one is free save Jupiter.
I know it, and I have nothing to say against it.
Wilt thou not then bestir thyself to cast fetters about this wretch, that the sire may not espy thee loitering?
Ay, and in truth you may see the manacles ready.
Take them, and with mighty force clench them with the mallet about his hands, rivet him close to the crags.
This work of ours is speeding to its consummation, and loiters not.
Smite harder, tighten, slacken at no point, for he hath cunning to find outlets, even from impracticable difficulties.
This arm, at all events, is fastened inextricably.
And now clasp this securely, that he may perceive himself to be a duller contriver than Jupiter.
Save this sufferer, no one could with reason find fault with me.
Now, by main force, rivet the ruthless fang of an adamantine wedge right through his breast.
Alas, alas, Prometheus, I sigh over thy sufferings.
Again thou art hanging back, and sighest thou over the enemies of Jupiter? Look to it, that thou hast not at some time to mourn for thyself.
Thou beholdest a spectacle ill-sighted to the eye.
I behold this wretch receiving his deserts.
I must needs do this. Urge me not very much.
Aye, but I will urge thee, and set thee on to. Move downward and strongly link his legs.
And in truth the task is done with no long toil.
With main force now smite the galling fetters, since stern indeed is the inspector of this work.
Thy tongue sounds in accordance with thy form.
Yield thou to softness, but taunt not me with ruthlessness and harshness of temper.
Let us go, since he hath the shackles about his limbs.
There now, be insolent, and after pillaging the prerogatives of the gods, confer them on creatures of a day. In what will mortals be able to alleviate these agonies of thine? By no true title do the divinities call thee Prometheus, for thou thyself hast need of a Prometheus, by means of which you will slip out of this fate.
Exeunt strength and force.
Another source mentioned that there is a version of the story of Zeus defending Mount Olympus from Typhon, the greatest and strongest of the Titans, said to be the father of all monsters, where Kratos remained and aided in the fight. This version is so unpopular that I couldn't find a source or written version of it anywhere, but I figured it was worth mentioning. Let's move on to modern history, where Kratos takes center stage in the God of War Saga. As I previously mentioned, God of War is a series of video games following Kratos as its main character. Aside from the video games, the series also has comic books and a novel that dive into further depth with the story. But neither is considered true canon, so we're going to stick to the timeline of the video games. The order in which the games were released and where they take place chronologically are different, and comes with some serious continuity errors in certain games because of this. You'd know what I'm talking about if you played or watched the games. However, this video is specifically about Kratos and not to critique the games, so I will leave it at that. Fair warning now, there are huge spoilers incoming, so if you haven't played God of War and would like to do so, you might as well stop watching here. The chronological order of the games follows as such: Ascension, Chains of Olympus, God of War, Ghost of Sparta, God of War 2, and God of War 3. These games tell a story of conquest, desperation, trickery, revenge, love, and perseverance. Kratos was a fearsome Spartan warrior, and grew his troop of soldiers into a massive army. Under his command, the army of Sparta marched on a conquest, meeting none who could withstand their power. That is, until they were met by a barbarian horde. His army was massacred, and the leader had defeated Kratos and was going to deliver the killing blow. In a desperate measure, Kratos called out and offered his life to Ares if he would strike down the invading barbarian army. Ares accepted, killed the barbarians, and bound Kratos with the Blades of Chaos as a sign of his servitude. Under the command of Ares, Kratos continued his rampage across Greece, conquering everyone in his path. One of the cities that he and his army were sent to worshipped Athena. Kratos and his armies were charged with burning everything to the ground and slaughtering everyone living there. Kratos was sent into a blood rage and murdered without abandon. It was after the fight had settled that Kratos realized his own wife and daughter were placed in Athena's temple and had died at his own hands. The village oracle bound the ashes of his family to his skin, making him snow white. Ares told Kratos that the battle was a test that was meant to remove the last remaining parts of humanity inside of him. Hearing this, Kratos was furious and revoked his oath to Ares. Granted, this is just the introduction. to God of War 1, but now we have to jump to Ascension to continue the story. Ares was angry with Kratos' decision and sent the Furies after him to punish him for breaking the oath. One of the Furies, Orcos, who happens to be the son of Ares and the Queen of the Furies, decided to help Kratos after seeing that his oath to Ares was full of injustices. Orcos sends Kratos to see the Oracle at Delphi, who tells him that the only way to rid himself of the blood oath to Ares is to kill the Furies. The Furies capture him outside Delphi and take him back to their prison, torturing him for weeks and trying to bend his will into serving Ares again. He refuses, persists, and eventually breaks the chains, and through an intense battle all throughout the prison, Kratos slays the Furies one at a time. This act breaks his blood oath to Ares, but he's haunted by the visions and nightmares of slaughtering his own family. So Kratos goes to the rest of the gods, requesting that they remove the nightmares. They promise to do so, only after Kratos serves them to atone for his sins. He agrees, and does as they bid. Now we move on to Chains of Olympus. This game follows a specific task set before him by Athena. Kratos was sent to the city of Attica to stop the invading forces of Persia. After defeating the Persians, the sun falls out of the sky, plunging the world into darkness. Kratos follows the dim light that remains and makes his way to the temple of Helios. Athena appears and tells him that Helios has disappeared, and Morpheus used this to his advantage to put the rest of the Olympians in a deep sleep. Athena charges Kratos with finding and rescuing Helios so that he can defeat Morpheus and wake the rest of the gods. Kratos agrees and sets out on his way. He finds out from Eos that Helios is being held captive by Atlas. Kratos uses the fire steeds who pull Helios' chariot to get to the underworld. When in Tartarus, Kratos can see Helios' light and follows it, eventually making it to Persephone's temple. He discovers that Persephone is the one who released Atlas and is holding Helios captive. She's willing to destroy Olympus and the rest of the world just to rid herself of her situation. Kratos chases Persephone to the pillar that holds Olympus, where Atlas is currently pounding away, trying to tear down the mountain. Persephone commands Atlas to kill Kratos, and he fails, and Kratos binds him to the ceiling of the underworld. Kratos returns to face Persephone and eventually kills her. She explodes, severing the pillar that holds the world, and all the weight falls on Atlas's shoulders. With the threat of the world's end almost over, Kratos finds Helios and returns him to the sky. After these events, we finally return to the plot of the first God of War game. The story moves forward to 10 years after Kratos began serving the rest of the Olympians, so 10 years after Ascension. Athens is under siege by Ares, and Athena wants Kratos to do whatever it takes to stop Ares from destroying her city. Kratos agrees and rushes into the city, fighting the forces. Kratos finds the Oracle of Athens, who tells him that he can only defeat Ares by killing him, and Pandora's box holds the power to kill a god. She tells Kratos that the box is hidden deep in Pandora's temple, which is built on the back of the Titan Kronos. Kratos makes his way to the temple, defeating foes and evading traps, and eventually finds Pandora's box. Ares knows of Kratos' efforts, however, and kills him by throwing a pillar from Athens through the desert and impaling Kratos against a wall. Kratos escapes the underworld, however, and makes his way back to Athens, where Ares has Pandora's box now. Kratos is able to get the box from Ares and open it, gaining the power to kill a god. Ares removes the Blades of Chaos from Kratos, but he finds a sword on the battlefield and uses it to kill the God of War. With Ares dead, Athena offers the throne to Kratos. He accepts and becomes the God of War. Next comes the plot of Ghost of Sparta. Kratos is still haunted by nightmares of his past, and he decides to explore his past and travels to the Temple of Poseidon. Kratos finds his mother in the temple, who tells him that his father is Zeus and his brother is alive. Deimos was captured when the two were young boys. The gods believed that Deimos was the marked warrior who an oracle told the gods would one day bring about the destruction of Olympus. Callisto says that Deimos is in the underworld being tortured by Thanatos, the god of death. Thanatos must have known about Kratos discovering this information because on his way to Sparta, Kratos encounters Erinis, the daughter of Thanatos. She engages him in battle, trying to stop him, and Kratos kills Erinis before continuing to Sparta. While in Sparta, Kratos visits the old temple of Ares and discovers that the entrance to Death's domain lies within Atlantis, and Kratos must return to the city that he just sank. Kratos returns to the city, now underwater, and finds the gates to Death's domain. Kratos finds Deimos, and the two reconcile and fight Thanatos together. Thanatos kills Deimos, and Kratos kills Thanatos. Athena meets with Kratos, informing him that he has now severed all his ties to the mortal world and can ascend to full god stature. Kratos turns down the offer and says the gods will pay for what they have done, leading into the plot of God of War 2. Kratos spent his time sending the Spartan army campaigning and conquering Greece. Kratos descends to Earth and joins the fight in Rhodes as a giant god. An eagle robs Kratos of his godly strength and height and infuses them into a statue. Kratos uses the Blade of Olympus, infusing it with the rest of his godhood, and defeats the statue. He is gravely wounded, however, and Zeus takes advantage of this moment, reveals himself as the eagle who stole his power, wields the Blade of Olympus, and kills Kratos with it. As Kratos is being dragged to the underworld, again, he's saved by Gaia. She tells Kratos the story of the Great War between Titans and gods, and how the Titans were banished, punished, and humiliated. Gaia instructs Kratos to find the Sisters of Fate and change the past to avert the betrayal of Zeus. Kratos uses Pegasus to fly to the island of creation where the Fates reside. During his journey to get to the Fates, Kratos encounters people from his past and meets new foes, such as Icarus, Euryale, the Gorgon Queen, Theseus, Perseus, and the barbarian king that he killed in the first God of War. He murders each of these foes and gains tools to use to help him reach the Fates. When he finally reaches the Fates, they deny him his wish, saying that no one can tamper with their fate. This angers Kratos, and he kills the Fates. Taking control of the loom, Kratos goes back in time to the moment Zeus betrays him, saves himself, fights the King of the Gods. It's a lengthy fight, but Kratos gains the upper hand, pins Zeus to the ground, and drives the Blade of Olympus into his chest. Athena interferes before Zeus could perish and sacrifices herself, taking the final blow of the sword. Athena reveals that Kratos is the son of Zeus. I know this was mentioned in Ghost of Sparta, but God of War 2 was released first, so this is still a revelation at this point. Plot holes, I know. And that he was trying to break the cycle of son killing father. Athena warns Kratos as she dies that the rest of the gods will defend Zeus and Mount Olympus with their lives. Kratos returns to the loom and goes back in time again, to the great war between the gods and Titans. Now, I'm going to stop here for a minute to vent. This is one thing that I won't pass up. I know that this video is about Kratos, and I didn't want to critique the games, but this is a huge plot hole, and shouldn't have even been possible, even in the parameters of the games. Gaia told Kratos that the loom would allow him to go back in time, but the Fates told him that he can only traverse his own thread. Kratos was never at the Great War. According to the games, he shouldn't have been able to travel back in time to this point. If I was to try and give it a reason for possibility, I'd guess it's because Gaia gave him a vivid vision of the war when she was telling him the story. Anyway, Kratos travels back in time to the Great War, finds Gaia, and tells her who he is and that he has come from the future. He coaxes all of the Titans to come with him back through the loom to his own time period and help him take over Mount Olympus. And so, we enter into God of War 3, the supposed end to the saga. Kratos and the Titans have returned to Kratos' time, and they're climbing Mount Olympus together. Gods are descending from the mountain to stop them, Poseidon leading the charge. He takes out several Titans and finds Kratos to confront him directly. Using water kinesis and hippocamps, Poseidon proves to be a formidable foe, but Kratos is victorious, killing the god. Gaia and Kratos make it to the top of the mountain, but Zeus is ready. He assaults them with multiple lightning blasts from a massive storm, and the two fall off the mountain. Gaia refuses to save Kratos, and he falls to his death, again. Athena appears to Kratos in the underworld as a higher existence than that of the Olympians. She tells him what he needs to defeat Zeus. Quench the flames of Olympus and use Pandora's box again. While fighting his way through the underworld, Kratos encounters Hephaestus, who decides to help Kratos exact revenge on Zeus, because Zeus also wronged Hephaestus. Kratos finds and kills Hades, and escapes the underworld through a Hyperion gate. Back on Olympus, Kratos renews his quest to reach the top, but now he's fighting both gods and titans. During his climb and journey to find Pandora, who's the key to quenching the flames of Olympus, Kratos fights and kills Helios, Hermes, Hercules, Hera, Kronos, and Hephaestus, who later betrayed Kratos to Kronos, before finally reaching the flame chamber with Pandora. Zeus is waiting for them, however, and the two of them fight again. Kratos gains the upper hand and has the chance to do what he needs to, but hesitates, having a change of heart. Pandora has to be burned in the flame for the flames to subside, but Kratos is questioning the decision to sacrifice her. Pandora is happy to fulfill her duty and sacrifices herself to help Kratos. The flames subside and Pandora's box is inside. Kratos opens the box, and it's empty. Kratos is enraged and he continues to fight Zeus, this time outside. Gaia appears and attempts to kill them both, but they retreat inside her body. Kratos and Zeus continue to duel inside Gaia, near her heart. Kratos and Zeus both continue to siphon power from Gaia's heart while they fight, which weakens her. And finally, Kratos impales Zeus against Gaia's heart with the blade of Olympus, which in turn kills them both. Gaia falls to the earth and Kratos is knocked unconscious. When he wakes up, he finds Zeus's body impaled by a rock. He extracts the blade of Olympus from the body, and Zeus's spirit, much like the reawakened Athena, emerges and assaults Kratos, draining him of his willpower. In this moment, Kratos goes through a mental journey of sorts, where he forgives himself of his past transgressions and awakens hope, with the help of Pandora. Kratos regains consciousness, forces Zeus's spirit back into his body, and beats him to death with his bare hands. Athena arrives to congratulate Kratos and explains that the hope inside him is the hidden weapon that was stored in Pandora's box, and he must have obtained it in the first time he opened it. She tried to beg him to give her the hope so that she can use it to create a new order on Earth. He refuses and impales himself with the blade of Olympus. A large blue ray of light emits from Kratos, supposedly giving the power of hope to all mankind. And I'd like to mention at this point, all of mankind is supposed to be dead, since killing the gods sent the world into an apocalypse of sorts. Athena pulls the blade from Kratos' body and leaves him to die. There's a post-credits scene where the spot he's laying on is empty, and there's a trail of blood leading to the edge of the cliff, which is the same spot that he tried committing suicide in the first God of War game. With the announcement of the 2018 God of War title, we know that Kratos didn't die, that he has a son, and that he has traveled to some northeastern European area and is fighting creatures from Norse mythology. Before this announcement, it was assumed that Kratos died and, in my opinion, threw the world into the apocalypse and ended mankind just to get his revenge. But that's another discussion for another video. As we're here to compare the original Greek mythology to the adaptation of the character, of course, the two are vastly different. Kratos in Greek mythology was a seldom mentioned god, representing strength and power and often called upon by warriors. He was an ally to Mount Olympus and stayed very close to Zeus, aiding him when needed. In God of War, Kratos is a vengeance-driven demigod with too much anger and stubbornness to see what he's causing in the world. He single-handedly slays the entirety of the Greek pantheon throughout the saga, and at least puts Greece underwater. These differences are quite extreme, but when you're creating a video game, some creative liberties must be taken. God of War creator David Jaffe stated that although Kratos shares a name with a Greek god, they are not the same character, and the saga's Kratos is more loosely based on many aspects of ancient Greek life. This sums up the first episode of Game Lore. I've got to tell you, I had a lot of fun doing the research and putting everything together for this video. This is the maiden voyage, and I'm sure there are things that I can improve on. I'd love some feedback. I have a lot of good ideas for the future and things that I want to cover in the series, and I truly hope you guys enjoy it and look forward to upcoming episodes. The next episode will be 4 weeks from now, and I'm thinking about covering Lord of the Rings. Let me know what you think and if you have any requests for future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like down below. Consider supporting me on Patreon and follow me on social media. All links will be in the description. My name is Equivalent Exchange, and thanks for watching.